Hello to all you, my friends out there in this magnificent universe of power. We're back. It's Titan Talk. Last time I was on the air, I was getting ready to depart on a family road trip out to South Utah and the mountains of Colorado. Just some time to get away. I was feeling very burnt out at that moment. If you recall to the last episode before I left, there were definitely some things that I know those of you who are my supporters and fans, if you will, that I'm thankful for, may have been a little bit worried trying to figure out what's Gabe going to do next, what's happening. Well, I feel supercharged by that road trip that we took, and it's been almost a month since. And during that time, I always love to have getaways where I can kind of tune myself out from the hustle and bustle, if you will, of everyday life at home, and kind of get out and recharge in wilderness, in nature, in these just beautiful places that the earth has waiting for us out there. And I came back from it feeling just turbocharged by so many good times. I got to take my wife and my daughter to the deserts of southwest Utah, spend some time in Bryce Canyon National Park and Capitol Reef National Park, really push my endurance on some magnificent hikes through otherworldly terrain. I got to escape the Texas summer, which I'm recording this in the second week of June. We're still not even technically in summer yet, but it's been really hot here in Texas. And to get away to the mountains and experience some snow time, it was just incredible. And my daughter is getting close to 16 months old now. She's not just walking, she's running, she's climbing. She's able to interact with the world in a very new way, and that makes it exciting as parents. I mean, we can do more, we can teach her more, she can take more away from these experiences, and that's priceless memories for us and also for her, just the amount of development that she's getting to experience, especially as just a creature of this earth and getting to see so much of it. It was incredible. And looking at it from a parenting standpoint, from my wife and I's perspective, our perspective, we never got to make it out to the mountains until 2018, until I was 28, until she was 26. That was our first time really being in the true mountains, and a part of our soul woke up when we got married in Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. And ever since then, we just cannot stop. We don't want to stop. We can't stay away from the mountains. It completes us to be there. And, we try to make it a point to where we get there at least 3 or 4 times a year. And that really means that if there's a period in time where we aren't there, or we're really working hard at home, we need a break, and we need to have that recharge. And it had been a long while prior to this last one. And all of that stress, the not being able to get away, the not being able to reset out there in nature really started to compile. And all the training myself to be one of the strongest men in the world, all those stresses started to compile. You got to hear on that last episode. I've been walking this path for a decade, and I'm feeling burnt out in many ways trying to be a competitor, at least right now. And getting to have that time away, not worrying about workouts, not worrying about anything else other than living in the moment to the absolute fullest, was incredible. And there was one point on the tail end of our trip where we didn't want to come back to Texas yet, so we stayed in southwest Colorado in Durango. And on one of the days that we were there, we traveled up the $1 Million Highway, US 550, that connects Durango to Silverton. It's one of the most beautiful mountain roads in the entire country. We had gone there in 2021 for my wife's birthday road trip. And on the top, or I say on the top, but on one of the high mountain passes that this $1 Million Highway goes through, it's called Molis Pass. It's at about 11,000 feet elevation, just below where the trees stop to grow in terms of mountain height. And 2 years ago, in March, it was still snow-covered, of course, up there. There was a stone that I remember seeing the first time we were there, and it looked oddly like a shield, resembled the Husafell stone a little bit, and I picked it up while I was there. I made it a point to lift the stone, to get it to my shoulders, and lo and behold, we went back to that same spot, and there it was, waiting for me again. My little family and I, we were playing around in the snow, just letting Xiomara experience making snow angels, snowballs. She's seen snow before, but that wasn't since she was about 3 months old. The last year, and she couldn't really, I doubt she remembers much of that. So it was really cool to get the snow time, but then to get to the top of a little hill and see that stone that I had picked up 2 years ago, just sitting there almost as if it had been untouched, unchanged. It was calling to me. I had to pick it up and move it again. And I haven't done any workouts over the course of this trip other than this stone, natural stone lifting at 11,000 feet with just beautiful, striking, majestic mountains all around me. And I got to rediscover the type of strongman that I really love, that really speaks to me, that I really get to connect with at a level down to the core of my soul. And so there was another big stone that I cleaned it and pressed it overhead, which felt really awesome and really great and really heavy. But this Husafell-like stone, the same stone that I lifted 2 years ago, getting to lift that, which it felt so much easier this time, and not only get it to my shoulder, but to carry it back and forth, up and down, almost as if I was doing a max distance Husafell. There was this moment that kind of like transcended just being there as a man lifting a stone. And it happened all in the moment where I'm going back and down over almost this 40-foot course that I've made for myself on top of a hill. And time starts passing by slowly. You know, in the midst of getting to see just all this magnificent landscape and terrain around me, I kind of have this understanding down to the fabric of my being that this massive rock that I have trained myself to be so strong and able enough to pick up and move, the only other force that is capable of moving this rock is the scope of time and the elements passing on Earth itself. You know, these forces that are so much more than this small, insignificant body of mine in comparison. And yet I have worked hard over the scope of my adult life and my career and strength specifically to build a foundation where I too possess the power to move this large chunk of rock, of earth, and to be in that moment an equal force to something that is so far greater than myself. And it sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, but this kind of thought process and getting to just immerse myself in the simple act of carrying a rock, it slowed down time, and I got to really feel important in a way, if you could. I got to feel like I connected with the landscape around me and became something more. And this is such a profound thing to try to explain, but it really paints a picture of how when we find something that connects with us, that we really enjoy, that really speaks to us in a level, in a way that we haven't quite felt or allowed ourselves to feel as frequently as we should, it resonates loudly, and it becomes something that you want more of. And I got to rediscover my love for natural stone lifting on this recent family road trip that we took. And I want more of it. I want more of it. I want to get out in more beautiful habitats, be it mountain, desert, snowscape, you know, rock field, whatever it is, and lift just more stones and have more of those feelings. And yeah, that's a really cool realization, especially from the point of view where many things about strongman lately as a competitor have felt negative, have weighted on me in a negative way. This one really uplifted me. And, you know, you don't know exactly what that stone weighs. I mean, you're not competing against anyone other than yourself in this rock. So it's not like typical, let me go, you know, post this to social media and grade it against my peers and see how I stack up. No, this was just something for me, and that felt really good. So we were on the road for about 2 weeks, and instead of going straight back home all the way here to the tip of South Texas where I'm recording currently, we decided to stay up in Austin for a little bit, spend some time with family. My sister, who was studying abroad in Ireland, graduated and came back to the States, and we had a grad party for her that I wanted to stay through the weekend for. And it was just set to be a really good time. Now, this is where things get a little different, is I haven't trained for 2 weeks other than the stone lifts on top of the mountain. And I was still planning on doing the World's Strongest Latino in Portugal in July. We're pretty much a month out from that right now as I speak. So there's this pressure to maintain my readiness, to maintain my strength. I'm excited for World's Strongest Latino in many ways more than I was excited for the prospect of World's Strongest Man 2023. This was just a historical competition for Latinos worldwide, and being the first Hispanic Latino to ever make it to World's Strongest Man, I really want to show up and represent. So I want to keep this readiness, and I got to stop and train at a really great gym run by great people there in Austin, Big Tex Gym. It's just a playground for strength heads. Highly recommend you stop there. I got to meet up a buddy of mine, and we were working out, and I was deadlifting in a way that I knew I needed to be to maintain my readiness, even though I had spent 2 weeks on the road, driving, hiking, sitting down for long periods of time while driving. Maybe not the most conducive posture for a deadlift session, but I did know that, and I knew I wasn't going to deadlift until like the 800s or above, but I wanted to do something that stimulated this need for my body to hang on to what it has and to be like, hey, we're not shifting to hiking mode. We are still keeping ourselves strong for the deadlifts ahead. So I went about my training session, did everything right. My deadlifts were feeling good. And I decided to push, I did 3 top sets. One was at 655. The next one was at 705. That felt great. Nothing was wrong. I'm like, let's go 755, not 800, but 755. And the collective stressors of all the travel. You got to think of all the postural changes from being in a car. I think that the day prior I was in a car for 11 hours, and the day prior to that I was in a car for 12 hours. All of that combined with sitting down, certain muscles are lengthened. The right side is a little bit different than the left. Despite my previous working sets feeling so good, on that 755, there was a tiny little shift in my hips. One that you might not even be able to see unless you're pausing the video and going frame by frame, but it happened. It was there. The lift went up and I locked it out fine, but I knew in that moment that something happened. It wasn't like shooting nervous sensations down my legs or back or anything like that, but something happened. And in the course of the next 2 minutes after that initial deadlift, my back started locking up terribly. I had a water bottle on the floor that I tried to reach down and pick it up, and I had to ask my buddy to pick it up for me just because I was starting to lock up so bad and it was in so much pain. So fast forward throughout the rest of that day, we've got this great weekend planned, graduation party for my sister who's back in the States after spending time abroad. We're meeting up with some lifelong friends who are in Austin down from California. We've got all this great stuff planned. And then I throw out my back. And it is a complete wrench in all those plans. And later on that day with our friends from California, we went to go to a spring-fed pool there in Austin, and I'm just in pain, having some real trouble moving around, trying to be happy, have a good time. But there's one point where I put my daughter down in the pool, and we're in the shallow end. Like, it's not even up to my knees. It's up to not even the bottom of her chest, just to let her play around a little bit. I managed to put her down, but after a little bit, she is like, Dada, wants to be picked back up. And I try to reach down to get her, and I can't go down low enough. And she's there waiting for me to pick her up, and I can't. And I have to look at my buddy Chris. I'm like, can you get her for me? And, of course he had no problem. But in that moment of a father discovering that he has done something to his body that has taken away his ability to even pick up his daughter from a body of water, it's like, holy hell. This is a red freaking flag. We need to take a step back and realize what has happened, because in my eyes, nothing is worth that. In my eyes, it's something as simple as being able to care and be able to care for my daughter. If I can't do that, what the fuck am I doing? That is wrong to the core of what I hold to be what I want out of this life, especially in terms of protecting my offspring. So, that's one moment of reflection. I did not have any relief from the back pain that I had from this injury for a whole 2 days. And I have to tell you, after being a strongman for 10 years, enduring this path, there's been many times where I've hurt my back. Many times where I have to think to myself, like, Gabe, is this it? Is this the time where you herniated a disc and you've ended your career? And of course, in those moments of back injury, we're always our worst enemy. We think the absolute worst has happened to us, and it's usually never that bad. But this time, this was by far the worst back injury I have sustained to date. The pain that I was in for these initial 2 days never subsided. I could not walk. I could not stand up. I could not sit down or bend over. There was no comfort. And there were times where I would move the wrong way, and the only reaction, the only thing I could do was scream out in agonizing pain. Like, it was just such a visceral response to what was happening. And again, I never felt any nervous sensations, no shocking or flaming sensations encircling my body or going down my legs. Nothing that told me yet that this was bad, all the way down to the spine or to the discs. And after 2 days, things started getting better, but it really messed with our plans. And to have so much recent good times on the road while we were traveling up in the high country, to feel so able to be able to push the distances that I was able to physically with my daughter on her hiking backpack on my back at altitude. I felt so capable up there, and to have that all ripped and taken away from out under me, just stemming from my need to maintain readiness to be one of the strongest men in the world. It was a consequence that I was very fearful of the last episode I recorded talking to y'all before I took off on the trip. The idea of sacrificing quality of life or capability for the sake of maintaining myself as a competitor in this sport is not something I can easily swallow right now, especially being a father of a child who is in one of the most densely packed developmental phases of her life. So I had to take a step back and realize, Gabe, what are you doing? Is this worth it right now? Because this pain that you're feeling, knowing that this is the worst back injury you've had to date, this is bad. And here's where it gets one step further intensified. I haven't been open about it, but since November of last year, within the scope of the past 8 months, I have injured that lower right section of my back 4 times. This was number 4. The exact same spot, right where the lumbar spine meets the hips, that SI joint. This is the 4th time I've injured that same area. So there's something going on here. And there's something going on here that is progressively building from one incident to the next, to where this recent one was the worst one that I've experienced to date out of all of my back injuries. Now, knowing the goals that I still have for deadlift, I still say with 100% conviction, I want to make a run for that deadlift world record. I sure as hell want to make a run for the American world record. There's no doubt in my mind for either of those two. Understanding that, and understanding that anything above the 700-pound range really, but especially in the scope of 900, 1,000, 1,100-pound deadlifts, that is incredibly consequential territory. And if I am on a trend of constantly progressing and intensifying injuries, who knows what the next one's going to be if I don't fix this? And it's a scary thought. It's a scary thought. Like, now I feel great now after the injury. It's been about 2 complete weeks since any sort of pain response or recovering from that. It seems like it was just a very bad sprain to where all the tissue around the area locked up. You got to remember that our lower back, especially anything around the spine, whenever it gets pushed to a point of such high fatigue or stress, as a defense mechanism, it will lock up to protect everything that lies beneath rather than leaving itself pliable and movable to any potential additional stress or injury. So everything locked up really bad on me there, and it was really hard to loosen up. Luckily, I've gained a lot of experience over the years. I know a lot of techniques that can help loosen up, and I did, and I feel absolutely incredible right now. And I'll touch more on that in a little bit, but if I got pushed to that point and the next time is on a trend to be even worse, I don't want that next time. And I'm going to make every conscientious effort I can to avoid that next time. So after that injury that I sustained up in Austin, the worst lower back injury I've had to date, I decided to myself that I am going to take a temporary break from competing. It is something that I know I need to do, not just from the mental standpoint, which you got to hear a lot of the mental aspects weighing on me in the previous Titan Talk. It's not just the mental or the emotional aspect. It's just the very real physical aspect of there's something going on in my back that I need to get ahead of and I need to fix, and I need to know that it is there 100% before I continue to push again. Because when it comes time to step back into competition, I'm already at a point right now, and this is not being dramatic, this is just being real, where a lot of the forces that be that fill rosters and competitions have either forgotten about me or are going to need me to prove my worth again to get onto those rosters. So I'm understanding, and it's fine, I get it, whatever. I'm beyond the caring about it phase. I do acknowledge that when it comes time, I'm going to have to prove myself. And if I enter another competition and I get injured or I underperform, that's not going to do anything good for my career as a strongman. So I want to make sure, one, that I stay healthy for the sake of being a healthy individual, a healthy father, a healthy husband, top priority right there. But then 2, making sure that I can be a healthy competitor to where number 2 doesn't take away from number 1. So I'm going to take a temporary break from competing. Sadly, and heaviest on my heart, that means I will not compete at the World's Strongest Latino in Portugal. I told you I was more excited for that than World's Strongest Man in many ways. But there is a max deadlift in the final of that competition. And right now, with how recent that back injury is, I can't go into it with a clear head or thinking that I'm going to come out the other end okay. And that's something that I hope the SCL and the promoting forces really understand that I have to make this decision for my longevity and they don't hold it against me. But yeah, I will for sure not be competing at World's Strongest Latino. There is the American Deadlift Championships and at the World Strength Games in Florida in September. I haven't taken myself out of that yet. It's something that I want to do. And even if I don't want to do the full strongman contest, I can do just the deadlift attempt. And I don't think I'm going to be losing my deadlift ability anytime soon, but am I going to be at a point where I can push the bounds of 1,000+ pounds going for that American record? I don't know yet. And I don't think I will know until I get closer to August, to be honest. So for this foreseeable rest of this year, I'm going to take a break from competing. It's something I need to pay forward to myself. I know I will come out the other end better. And this is not something I'm deciding right here on this day recording this episode. This is something I've already decided for about 3 weeks now. And I have to tell you, in the time since I've decided that, I feel absolutely incredible. I feel completely like a weight has been lifted, a pressure has been lifted. I've rediscovered a joy for training, doing things that I want to do for the sake of my own health and my own happiness, my own satisfaction, not being pressured to train competition events over and over again, or to get on social media and look at these guys I'm competing against and hold myself in constant comparison to these other guys who are just at the top of their game, breaking down every aspect about myself and my own performance. I don't have any of that right now. I just feel so freaking good and happy, and it's making me I feel like I'm a more productive father and husband, and it's just comprehensively and holistically strengthened all of my life at once by deciding that. And without that pressure of training for certain things, I've also gotten to really just focus on what I know I need to do to get my hip and lower back completely healthy. So I just feel really good. And you cannot put a price on health. You really can't, especially in a sport that is so intense, where we see so many athletes not just burn out, but completely drop off. And yeah, I might feel burnt out to the point where I need to take a break, but I'm taking this break so I don't drop off, so I can come back and finish the business that I still know I want to finish and prove to the world. But I'm not even 33 yet. I turned 33 in a couple months. I'm still like in 30 to 40, I feel like our prime strongman years. So there's not one voice of regret or thinking that if I decide to take this break that I'm not coming back. But on that note, like I said on the last episode, if even after taking this break, I decide that I don't want to come back to strongman, which is not the case, because I plan on coming back, and there's a lot of things I need to do for myself. But even if I did decide to stop, I could stop and do so and be at peace with it. I've achieved so much. You know, the world will always look back on records or whatever, you know, a internet page says about me and what I've done. You can read my record and think whatever you want. I know what I've accomplished and what I've done, the people I've competed against, the records that I've gotten so close to taking for my own. You know, I have proved so much to myself, and that is way more worth it than what so-and-so from the other side of the world or the other side of the continent thinks about my record. So I could be at peace if I wanted to stop, but I don't want to stop. I just want to take a break so I can be stronger in both body and mind. And I'm in a really good place because of that decision. Let's fast forward a little bit to where you might be able to see me next. Now, I am recently off of getting to have the honor of commentating at the USS National Championships in Dallas. That was a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed over the recent years starting to grow the voice work facet of my life, whether it be doing commentary for contests, voiceovers or narration for advertisements or commercials, or even things like recording this podcast. I really enjoy getting to use my voice and people like when I get to do so as well. So that's pretty cool. I had a blast doing commentary up there at the USS National Championships. I got to see 600 athletes all contest their strengths against these trials of power throughout the day. It was a good time, and I got to see the future of the sport and possibly future rivals just really giving it their all. Such a powerful experience, a reunion, meeting a lot of old familiar faces and getting to meet a lot of new ones. I loved it, and I came out of that feeling so charged up. Now, I bring that up because the next time you'll be able to get to see me on the mic will be the second weekend of August at Colorado's Strongest Man and Woman. It is a USS show, but I will be working commentary with the ADL live stream, and that's going to be an awesome contest. Brando Barrett, his wife, Barrett Strength Systems, they're all putting so much into this contest for the athletes and to grow the sport, and I love to be a part of that, especially in a state that I love too. I know I'm the Texas Titan, but the Texas Titan has his heart in Colorado. So I'll be there the second weekend at Colorado Strongest Man, just outside of Colorado Springs. And then that next weekend, you can find me at the Shaw Classic. I will not be at the Shaw Classic as a competitor this year, but there is no way I could be at peace with not participating in the event to some form. So you will find me at the Shaw Classic at the Evolution Athletics booth at the Expo. There will be blocks during the Expo day where you will get to come listen to me, where I will have a speaking block just for a talk led by me, and I will leave the subject matter of that talk to be announced at a later date, but it'll be well worth it. Stop by if you can. And as far as I know, I will be doing commentary for the Open Division athletes during the Shaw Classic. So I'm really pumped up to be there. It is really shaping up to be the one of the, if not the premier strength contest in the world. And I'm so stoked to be there. But there's a whole week in between these two contests where I will be on the mic at both. So, and I bring this up because this is now where my goals and endeavors are for my personal training. I am shifting my training temporarily to perform well in the mountains. A lot of my feelings towards strongman in the recent months have been, well, of course, the negative feelings first of all, but acknowledging that strongman, if strongman were gone, strongman doesn't care if I'm there or not. Of course, I know I have the unwavering support of so many of you that I'm thankful for, but the sport of strongman doesn't care if I'm there or not. The promoters don't care if I'm there or not. They've got so many other athletes to pick from throughout the world. But my family cares if I'm here or not. And I want to invest my time right here, right now into the facet or the group that cares about me, that I know benefits from me being actively involved and engaged with them throughout every moment. And I thought to myself, if strongman were gone, if I could not do strongman anymore, would that destroy me mentally, emotionally, down to my core? No, not really. There's a part of me that it would hurt, but it wouldn't destroy me. But let's think about something else that I love, the mountains. If the mountains were gone, would that destroy me? If I couldn't go into the mountains again for the rest of my life, yeah, that would absolutely break me, and I would be devastated. It's summer right now, and I think to my daughter being she's not even 2 yet, that means from a totally dramatic standpoint, being able to say it, that I only have 17 summers guaranteed left with her. And nothing's guaranteed. I could die tomorrow. But I only have 17 hypothetical summers left for her. And summer in the mountains especially is such a precious window of opportunity to enjoyment, where there's no snow on the ground anymore, or it's melting off and there's butterflies, birds chirping, wildflowers blooming, just splendor and awesome times to be had everywhere. And it's precious, and I want to take advantage of it. And so I am training myself to be able to perform better, stronger, faster in the mountains at altitude. And I'm doing this because in that week between Colorado's Strongest Man and the Shaw Classic, my wife and I have planned and set our daughter's first 14er, her first 14,000-foot peak that we're going to take her up on. And our first one since she's been born. We haven't done one since well before my wife got pregnant. So That's going to involve having her on our hiking backpack. That's going to involve about 4,000 foot of elevation gain. And it's going to be a long mileage day at high altitude. And it's something I could do right now if I wanted, but how long would that day take? How much would I be able to enjoy it with how much effort I'm putting in? It would be very different than if I'm able to train myself to perform very well, very strong. So, in addition to healing my hip and my lower back, to maintaining my strength and still training to be strong, I want to stay strong and ready. Should there be opportunities that come and knocking, I was like, hey, I really want to take advantage of this one. Let's do it. But training my endurance, my cardio, my conditioning, probably leaning down a little bit. You might not be able to tell for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, but I've dropped quite a bit of body weight and I feel incredible. I've started running again. I'm really trying to push my endurance on running. I want to be able to run multiple miles at a time without stopping. Although I haven't gotten on a scale in a while, I'm guessing I'm right about 290 right now. So below 300, coming down to Kevin Ferris range. Kevin, cheers. And I just want to be able to push well. And I said it before, but I just feel so freaking good right now. And I haven't felt this way in a long time. I feel so able. I think back to even in the final days of before I closed my gym, Alpha Fit, around August, July of last year, I still had so much residual effects from my knee injuries of 2021 and early 22 that I could not run for more than a couple hundred feet. But now I can run almost a whole mile without stopping, and that's just getting better and better each day. And it just feels so good to have that capability come back, to have that functionality come back, to be able to push myself. It's something that I never thought I would be saying as a super heavyweight professional strongman, but regaining these abilities is waking up something in my soul, and it's something very priceless, and I don't want to let go of it. I want to keep grabbing onto it. And I tell you what, one of the most motivating factors for me is something that I haven't experienced for a couple of years now, is working so hard, going over a several mile-long journey at altitude on a constant uphill slope in just incredible terrain with landscapes so much bigger than anything I've ever seen, and standing at the top of a high mountain summit, looking at the world outstretched beneath me and just being on top of it all, looking down at all of my work that I did to get there, and just it's a feeling that no words will ever do justice in describing, but it's just one of total sheer magnificence and feeling small in a massive world in the best way. And to further touch on that sentiment itself, when I was on Brian Shaw's podcast, the Shaw Strength podcast, we got to reflect on some of my athletic achievements over the years. And there's one, a really big one, which is my 1,000-pound deadlift in Manchester, where I became the 13th or 14th man to deadlift 1,000 pounds right after my buddy, Evan Singleton. And I remember one thing that was told to me at the time was that there are more men who have been on the moon than there are who have deadlifted 1,000 pounds. And that made me feel pretty freaking special, especially as a space nerd. But even the grandeur of lifting 1,000 pounds and entering that 1,000-pound deadlift club, in my mind, that didn't even come close to being as significant to myself as the first 14,000-foot peak I climbed, Long's Peak, as summiting that was. Summiting Long's Peak back in 2018 is still to date the most significant athletic accomplishment that I've ever done. And it's funny because it wasn't in front of a crowd of people. There's no award I got from that. I didn't make it into any record books or anything like that, but it was something I did for myself. I did with my brother, with another friend. We started out that mountain with my wife, and I mean, it was so fulfilling and just such an incredible thing to have done, knowing the terrain that we traversed, the sheer cliffs and 3,000-foot drops we saw, the narrow ledges we had to climb over. I mean, nothing compares to that. And I want that again, and that feeling of standing on summits, and now getting to add the aspect of sharing it with my daughter. It's just crazy, and it's driving me so much right now. And in this pursuit, I have absolved myself of all the negative stressors that just destroyed my mental health over the recent months. That made me feel like so much less than what I should feel. That made me not a functional father or husband, an unhappy person. I'm absolved of all that. And I'm working on something that is making me healthy and capable and happy. And for the sake of chasing, that's something that makes me feel fulfilled and complete. And I tell you what, even though I'm doing cardio, dropping body weight, I'm staying strong. And above all else, I just feel so complete. I feel so happy. I feel so excited for every next day to see what I can do, what bounds I can push. I look forward to training again. I'm having fun. I'm just in a really good place right now. And I wanted to make sure I shared that with y'all because I know I had a lot of people reach out to me in those initial days of me saying I'm burnt out, that I don't know what's going to happen. But after this trip, this recent road trip, getting to share precious memories in the wilderness with my daughter, feeling capable, and then realizing that, hey, there are consequences right now beyond the scope of mental ones if I continue to push really hard, like with the injury. And then taking that necessary step back for myself is hard, and it's having my mind work a certain way for 10 years, the past 10 years, and trying to be the strongest man in the world. It's really hard to change gears for a little bit, but man, I feel really good. So right now, the motto of my training is from strongman to summit. And I will try to share some of the experiences with you. I can't make any promises I'm going to get a full YouTube series or anything like that. I'm a one-man team. I don't have a recording team like some of the other guys out there. So whatever I can get out there, I will. But I definitely want to share the experience with you all. I'm doing really well right now, guys, and I can't stress out how much that means to me. It just feels so good, and I'm just so excited for everything that happens between now and whenever in the future. And I'm sorry if my decision to take a temporary break in competing hurts some people's feelings, or they want more, or they think I'm going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm feeling really good, and I want to keep feeling good and make these decisions that are the best ones for me in the long run. So in the meantime, of course, I'm training for mountain summits. I'm building my voice work career. I am focusing on being the best coach I can be. I'm really enjoying working with my athletes and seeing them grow and giving them my full self without having to, constantly think about my own athleticism in my mind. And above all else, I'm getting to enjoy every bit of being a dad right now. And it's absolutely freaking priceless. So again, the next time you can see me will be at Colorado's Strongest Man and Woman, the second week of August. I'll be at the Shaw Classic that third week of August. Can't wait for both of those. And I know I will be commentating at OSG again later on this year. Whether or not this break of mine will extend all the way through the year, I don't know. I would love to compete at America's Strongest Man in November, I believe. So we'll see how I'm feeling around then, but that might be a good contest for me to jump back into it. Maybe not. We'll see. I'll make whatever decision is best. But in the meantime, I'm staying strong, I'm staying healthy, and I am feeling very happy. But as for our space out today, I sit here recording this episode in the week before it officially turns summer. And it has been summer here in Texas for a long time already, since April. I looked at the forecast today, and I saw over the course of the next 10 days, there is not a single day that is below 104 here. Not a single day. We have a day next week where we're getting up to 109. And I don't live in an arid desert. I live in a subtropical region, the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. So we have not just this high heat, but we also have high humidity. And it just really freaking sucks. And I say this because we're getting to a point now where I think over the course of the next the next couple decades, there's going to be a band around the equator, around the tropical and subtropical zone of the world, where it is going to become increasingly hard to habitate or survive in that area. I think of most days now that there is a time period between, sometimes it gets as early as 10 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. 10 hours of the day where you don't want to be outside. You can't be outside. You have to go inside, shut all your windows, keep the air conditioner running crazy high just to wait out the peak hours of the day. And it sucks to do that in summer. And I know people can relate to that who live in more higher latitude regions or more high elevation regions where they get snow locked throughout the winter. But it is a tough thing to think about in the scope of summer, because when things get too hot, it's not just humans. It's vegetation, it's animal life, it's insect life. I think in the course of the next couple decades, there will be a band around the middle of the earth that is just going to be really hard to inhabit. And you can't help but wonder about these big urban areas that have, developed. I think about, of course, everywhere here in the Rio Grande Valley. I think about Austin, San Antonio, Houston. I think about the big population centers in Louisiana and Florida and all of the lower parts of the states, the United States. There might be a point in the future where you can't live there. And think of all the money that's in Austin right now, or the tech area rising there. And I say this because there is an instillment of enjoy the good times. Don't take them for granted. Enjoy the times where you can get outside. You can go out on the hikes. You can enjoy flowers blooming. You can enjoy splashing around in a pool, picking oranges off trees, whatever it is, to where you can be outside, because there could be a point where so much of this climate science and studies are unknown to what direction will the Earth actually wind up taking. Because the Earth does unpredictable things all the time. I mean, scientists just recently found out that the core of the planet completely changed directions. I mean, we're discovering that there are things like, subterranean oceans that we never even knew were there, are underground mountain ranges between the crust and the mantle of the Earth, with mountains bigger than Mount Everest down there. There's so much unpredictability and unknown about the Earth, where who knows if, the Gulf of Mexico, 45 minutes away from me, can start being capable of producing, monsoons. Even with the low elevation slope of Texas, we could see monsoon activity. And while I'm talking about all the days next week being in excess of 104 here, Denver and some of the areas, or the high areas outside of Denver and the Front Range of Colorado, they're going to get 10 inches of snow over the weekend. The state of Colorado itself, I think less than 3% of the entire state right now in June, the mid of June, is in drought conditions. The rest of the state is so far past their needed moisture levels for this time of year because of all the late snowfall. And Utah as well, there's a lot of late snowfall. So we have extreme heats in some parts, and we have enduring colds in other areas. There's going to be a lot of turbulence, of convection oven type stuff going on. And it makes me really wonder, like, how is our hurricane season going to be this year? How are the extreme weather patterns going to be? We had a tornado near Brownsville a couple of weeks back while I was on the road trip, where, a couple people died. And we don't usually experience tornadoes, at least that type of devastating tornadoes, this far south. So I'm spacing out, just on the precipice of what is about to officially become summer, how freaking hot it is. And what type of actions that makes you do, whether it's doing things that are more green, like whatever green practices you have, whether it's compost or collecting rainwater or driving an electric vehicle, whatever it is, recycling, maybe it paints a new light on those. Maybe it paints a new light on ways that we can just lessen the footprint or the aggression of these. Or maybe, like me, it intensifies the idea or the notion that you got to get up and go somewhere that feels a little bit better, because I love Texas. I've been born and raised in Texas, but this is just too damn much. I refuse to look at weeks ahead of me that are all in the 100+ degree territory. And there are some of you listening to this podcast that live in Arizona, and you're going to be hitting 120 in the coming months. You're like, 109, that's child's play. But you don't have that humidity. And the Earth could be a very different place in a couple years. Even thinking to those coastal cities. I know I read a recent article about New York is sinking under the weight of all of its high-rise and skyscrapers. And for something that, a port city that's with so much money in it and so much urbanization in it, if that just goes and sinks, like, here's your sign. Here's your sign. The Earth is changing. Let's do something about it. But I'll leave that as an open-ended to kind of, you let your minds wander on the habitability of the central part of our world right around the equator and the tropics, because it does not feel survivable right now for me. And I know there's people out there that love the heat, and I know there's people out there that love the cold, but we have only existed on this planet because of a Goldilocks zone for so long. And it makes you, want to appreciate what we have, want to pay it forward in preserving the future, but also, entertain the idea that, hey, we got to extend possibilities to living elsewhere if and when needed. So very cool when things are happening, like SpaceX celebrating its 200th Falcon 9 rocket landing, the epitome of reusability and paving the way for humanity becoming an interplanetary species and maybe have another planet to wait out these hot summers here on Earth or the moon, whatever it be. But be on the lookout for the next episode of Titan Talk. I have a very special guest joining me. The Texas Stone Man himself, legend Travis Ortmayer, will be on Titan Talk to share some of his expertise and knowledge that he has gained over the illustrious career that he's had. And the man is just such a joy to talk to. But Travis Ortmayer, the Texas Stone Man, will be on Titan Talk for the next episode. And until then, my friends out there in this incredible universe of power, I hope you keep wayfaring out there with hunger, with curiosity, and with a never-ending and relentless urge to become better and to become something more, to wake up each day knowing that you have progressed further down a constructive endeavor, to know that you yourself are capable of this change, and to keep paving the way for a better future, for you, for your loved ones, for the planet. Until next time, this has been Gabriel Pena, right here on Titan Talk.